Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Alder Hour, your favorite way to end your working day. I'm Matt Alder from Recruiting Future, and I also host the Alder Hour, which is fantastic. This show is part of the Purple Acorn Network. If you head over to purpleacornnetwork.com after the show, you can learn more about Purple Acorn and all the fantastic other shows that are on the network. Also, the best thing to do is to actually follow Purple Acorn on LinkedIn. Then you'll never miss a post and you'll never miss any of the live streaming shows. This episode is available as a podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, and we are also going out live. So please leave us some comments. We will try and read them out on air and get you involved in the debate. And we've got some great topics that we're talking about tonight. Great guest. Should be a great show to join in. So without further ado, I'd like to say a big hello to Rhona, co-host of the Alder Hour. Hi, Rhona. How you doing?
Hey, Matt. Doing good. How are you today?
I'm all right. I kind of got a bit of a cold, so my brain is not kind of fully functioning, but I think I'll be okay. What's going on in your world at the moment?
I'm at my best. I always say like the day after daylight savings time is when I
Oh,
like wake up early. I'm like a morning person. I'm everything I wish I was the rest of the year for the few like 2 to 3 days of this week until I get settled in. So I'm like amped up. And today we're talking about just another post that I stumbled upon for interview scams and
ah,
what's happening out there. So I'm excited to talk about
absolutely,
that.
which is a big topic. Yeah, of course. It's your clocks changed at the weekend, didn't you? Because ours changed the weekend before. So I was very confused last Monday in terms of what time the show was on. But it's good to be aligned again. So we all know what's going on. Cool. Well, let's go straight into points and pints. Right. So if you've not watched the show before, why have you not watched the show before? If you've not watched the show before, in this part of the show, we I was going to say we sort of drink our favorite drinks, but that's not actually true. We try and find experimental drinks to drink to see if we like them. And while we're doing that, we talk about a couple of stories that we've seen in the news this week. Now, normally I have some kind of non-alcohol beer to drink in this section. But today I am making an exception because I found this in the supermarket. Can you see that? It is an alcohol-free gin and tonic. So Gordon's gin, except not gin because it's not gin, alcohol-free with tonic, zero sugar. Yeah, I'm interested to see what this tastes like. I can't imagine it would taste anything more than just like tonic, but we'll see in a second. Rona, what do you have for us?
So I went a little different today as well. So
Ah,
I'm from Panama, as everyone knows. Today's our Independence Day. I wanted something tropical and couldn't find it. So I made my own passion fruit juice and it's
wow.
experimental. We'll see how it tastes because I've never made this before.
What's experimental about it? Is it just passion fruit?
Me
Has it got
making
something else
it.
in it? Are you making it? Yeah, yeah. But tell us a bit more about the ingredients. Is it just passion fruit? Is it have
Yes.
you it is,
Just
okay, cool.
passion fruit, water, and sugar, which I think I did too much because I'm like, no, I think I need more. I think I need more. So we'll see how it tastes.
We'll see how it goes. Right, let me just here we go. Let's open my gin and tonic. Well, it's not really gin and tonic, is it? It's just a Gordon's and tonic. So they're really going on the brand there. Gordon's gin, gin and tonic, quintessentially British drink. Although I find it tends to be served much better in other countries. But anyway, let's give it a go. I
Your
really
face is amazing.
it's kind of weird. It's like it tastes like sparkling water with some horrible chemical sweetener in it, and then right at the end there's this kind of weird aftertaste of gin. So that is the weirdest drink I think I've ever had.
For anyone listening in the podcast, you really need to go find the replay on YouTube or LinkedIn because Matt's face was amazing.
Yeah, or just go and get one of those for yourself, and you can do. But okay, enough of that. What about the passion fruit? How was the passion fruit?
It was okay. It doesn't taste like what I'm used to back home, but I think I should practice a bit more and maybe add more sugar. For some reason, it needs more sugar.
Well, I think you probably won the round of drinks this time because this is really sorry, Gordons, if you're listening, this is really not the best. Cool. Okay, let's go on to our first article. Let's see what we're talking about. Right, this is really interesting. So, I read somewhere that there's been at least 100,000 layoffs in the last 2 weeks or something absolutely crazy like that. So it's layoffs everywhere at the moment in lots of different countries, not just the US. This article, CEO Andy Jassy, is that his name? Jassy, says Amazon's 14,000 layoffs weren't about cutting costs or about AI taking jobs. Apparently, it's culture. Now, the thing that stood out for me about this article is Amazon really need to get their story straight because
Yes.
they've said these layoffs are about all of these things, and now he's claiming it's not. And to me, it's almost like they're trying to be a moving target, so you can't actually pin anything on them as to why they've done this. We've talked on the show before about seemingly AI driven layoffs, and is AI just being used as an excuse here? And I just thought this was interesting that they were now trying to take that's kind of what they said when these layoffs were made in the press release. It was about efficiencies driven by technology, but now apparently it's about culture. And it's all about them having too many layers of management, not quick decisions not happening quickly enough. They're growing quickly, disenfranchising people, all these kind of things, which is another kind of classic excuse. That was a kind of excuse we were hearing sort of a year ago, 2 years ago with the tech layoffs. So, Rhona, what do you think about this chameleon-like layoffs at Amazon and the reasons for them?
I definitely think they need to get their story together. Like you said, this is something that they've said before. At the end of the day, unfortunately, Q4, that's what people do. That's what companies do. They get ready. And for all the reasons that we know, I'm not going to speculate here, that's what they do. I think they just had a lot of backlash, especially when they announced the Amazon ones, because what the news that came out was that it was going to be 30,000. So I think now they're trying to like course correct that the PR mess that they built for themselves. Like if you're on any other social media other than LinkedIn, like Threads everywhere, they were getting slammed for it.
Yeah.
And I just think that they're trying to they just need to get their act together and get on the same page about what it is. I actually think the reason is all of the above. The reason is this is what we do every year, and we're going to keep pushing and making and laying off more and more people to see how much we can get away with. But that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, and I suspect this is mainly just all driven by the economy and
Yes.
what's going on. And it's I don't know. I think Amazon are in an interesting position because ultimately they're a company that relies on consumer confidence for their for the profits that they make. So if people don't have jobs, they don't spend money. If yeah, it's a tricky one. But I think it does kind of encapsulate where we are at the moment with some of these layoffs and the reasons that are being kind of made for them. And I think it's just kind of just a very sort of murky picture about how much this is AI, or how much this is the future of AI, or how this is companies preparing for the impact of AI. I think it's an interesting thing, and I was kind of sort of related to this, I suppose. I've been kind of looking more and more at the whole circular AI economy thing, where all the big AI companies are effectively spending all the money they raise with each other to kind of keep, keep that kind of bubble's probably the wrong word, but just keep that kind of part of the economy growing. And pretty much most of any kind of economic stability we're seeing at the moment is coming from that sector. So yeah, interesting times. But this just does smack of changing our story because we didn't like the PR that we got. I mean, what do you think the outlook is for this, Rhona? Do you think that we're going to see more layoffs as we go along? Is this the bottom of it? What's going on?
Unfortunately, yes. And I think especially companies like Amazon and companies that rely on consumers, because people are getting laid off all over, like even government here in the US, which is something that doesn't typically happen. So people have less money to spend. So these companies are making less money. And how do they usually correct things? Is by laying off. That's usually the first thing that they do. There, it, there is an issue with the economy. No one's really saying anything about it
Yeah.
because for whatever reasons, we won't
Yep.
get into that. So that's really, I think, unfortunately, we're going to see more of that until things stabilize a little.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, let's move on to the next one. Which is kind of it's I don't know, slightly brighter news, perhaps. I'm not sure. Okay, does the future of employment start with Palantir's fellowship as a college alternative? So this is loads of articles about this actually. Palantir, how do you say it? It's Palantir, isn't it? Um, is kind of out there on a big PR thing at the moment because they're offering a fellowship program as a college alternative, and the whole idea is that you leave school, you go into this fellowship program for a number of weeks slash months. It's not necessarily a full time. It's not a full time job. It's kind of a training scheme, but they're paying. They're paying what looks like reasonably proper sort of wages for doing it. When you dig into it, though, they've 20 places they're offering, or they've filled 20 places. So I'm not quite sure it merits the amount of publicity that it's got. But some interesting kind of talking points here. First of all, companies offering this type of scheme, but also, the future of college education. Is it worth it? Is it relevant? What were your thoughts reading this, Rona?
I thought it was interesting. I I 100% support different pathways to work. I don't think that college is going away, or it's just not. There's some careers where college is always going to be important and necessary. And then there are other careers where there are different paths that can be explored. So I think it's a good thing to see companies doing things like this. I think we'll probably see more of this just because of how out of hand the cost of college has gotten and how unimmediately people are seeing the ROI because people are stepping out of college and not being able to get jobs and stuff like that. So people will go to things more like this where you're getting paid while you're learning and there's a clear path to what you're going to do next. I don't think it's the end of college. I think colleges do have to look hard into what they're offering, and maybe some of the careers that are out there, some of the degrees that are out there will go away, but at the end of the day, I think both things are still gonna exist.
Yeah, and we've talked about it a lot on this show in terms of the kind of inadequacies of part of the education systems in terms of preparing people for this new world of work, or even preparing people for any kind of world of work after about the 1890s, in some cases, particularly in some of the education system in Britain. And I think it's great to see companies stepping up rather than sitting there and moaning and then going on about how they have to train people and all this kind of stuff. So I think it's good from that perspective. I've seen other kind of initiatives that other employers have done that kind of get even further into the education system, where they're actually aimed at younger people to actually try and fill in their gaps in education and kind of drive education that way. So ultimately, I think it is a good thing. It's good to see companies being proactive, offering opportunities. I think particularly in the environment we're currently in, where we may or may not be seeing entry level jobs disappearing because of AI. Again, it's the same. Are they just disappearing because of the economy, or is it because of AI? But there's definitely a big issue with entry level jobs at the moment. So it's great to see. It's great to see companies doing this. And as for, is it the end of college? I think this is a challenge to the higher education system to maybe get itself a little bit more fit for purpose. But also, I think there is an underlying thing here about how much of education should be vocational and how much should be actually, for the benefit of, opening people's minds and, helping them be better human beings. But that's probably a debate for another day.
It really is, and I was trying to think of how to say this in a way that
Yeah,
wouldn't come across, but I always remember I studied engineering and, information systems engineering, so our professors were always clear, like, the second you step out of this classroom, whatever technology you learned is going to be outdated. I'm not
yeah,
teaching you how to program in this specific language. I'm teaching you how to learn how to think about
exactly,
this. So the like
exactly.
when
Yeah.
we our expectations or some people's expectations of what they should be getting out of college aren't aligned with what it was actually intended to be.
Yeah, I think that's very true. It's always really interesting as well. Certainly, in the UK, whenever this debate comes up about, people having the right skills for work, what tends to happen is, either the government of the time or the opposition party of the time will start attacking specific degrees. So we should not fund drama degrees anymore. We should not fund English degrees anymore. We should only fund stuff to do with engineering and maths and science and stuff like that. And I just find that utterly awful. Speaking as a man with an English and drama degree, just because I think actually, the skills that we need for work aren't hard skills. We're talking about communication, flexible thinking, agile minds, those kind of things. And I think that is potentially what could get lost if education systems don't kind of step up and really think about how they're preparing people for this future world of work. And we know that skills go out of date really hard skills go out of date really quickly, as you just said with engineering. So yeah, we need to focus on focus on how people think and giving them the kind of the mental equipment to deal with what's going to be a very different shaped career from their parents or grandparents. But yes, anyway, another big topic, but cool. So yeah, interesting articles. There's obviously a kind of a theme here, but yeah, I think it's good. I think overall it's good to see an employer, offering more opportunities for people leaving school. So we'll give them a tentative thumbs up for that. And we're very harsh. We never give anyone a thumbs up. So that's cool. So thank you, Rhona, for joining me for that. And you'll be back a little bit later when we're going to be talking about candidate fraud or
Yes.
interview fraud, as it were. Cool. So next up, I would like to say a big hello to this week's guest. Hi, Sophia, and welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on the show.
An absolute pleasure. Now, just before I get you to introduce yourself, tell us where you're calling from. Where are you based?
I am calling from the south of Sweden, a town called Malmö, which is just a hop and a skip across a bridge from Copenhagen, Denmark. So I'm, calling you from very dark and rainy and late Monday night.
Yeah, I was going to say I had to do that because I think you're the first person I've had on the show who is further north and further west than
Nice.
I am. So yeah, so sorry to be talking to you so late in the evening. But
Okay.
without further ado, could you introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Okay. So I'm Sofia Whelan, and I am one of the co-founders of a company called HorizonHuman. We are a HR strategy consulting boutique that help organizations navigate this world of work, this new world of work, specifically helping HR organizations navigate this new world of work. So I have a background in consulting and then also spending time in-house, as we call it in industry, leading some work at one of the large banks in the US, all around kind of the future of HR and how HR can be ready for technology that's coming and how HR can help enable the organization to be ready for technology that's coming. And then I founded, together with my business partner, Sarah, HorizonHuman, to just kind of evangelize that, bring that to more organizations. As what we see now, we can't still predict. Nobody has all the answers. I definitely don't. But we know that this is a moment in time. quite unprecedented for us, at least, in terms of the technology that's coming at us, and how HR needs to step up and lead some of this, and help organizations and help the people through this massive transformation.
Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of a huge threat and a huge opportunity at the same time, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it definitely is, and it's exciting. My whole career has been built around helping HR be more impactful, helping HR, be driving the business forward. And this is one of the biggest opportunities I've seen for HR to step up and do that, and it's an opportunity, and it's scary all the same.
And what are the biggest challenges that you're seeing, CHROs having with this right now? What is it that's causing the most, the most friction or the most problems?
I think it's a little bit of a fear of falling behind, and trying things out, and not making things stick. I think it's sort of a balance of, I don't want to be left behind, so I need to start doing things. But then doing things in the sake of doing things don't necessarily always produce results.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest challenge, is you have to move fast. And HR, maybe traditional HR organizations, or how they're set up, and or how we work, is not necessarily built for kind of that fast paced moving. We like to make sure things are good, and we govern, and we have safeguards, and all of that is important. And we tend to work, a little bit in our silos. And so I think that the HR structures are not set up in a way that's going to enable us to move quick enough.
Mhm.
And then also, I think, the pace of change, is sort of creating this situation where we want to do things, and what we do is not necessarily always impactful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I did sort of dig into to all those things a little bit more, really. How's the operating model changing, or how does it need to change? Because you kind of mentioned the sort of the structure there, which is not really conducive to the times
My
that we're
favorite,
currently
my
going
favorite
through.
question. Yeah, honestly, it's my favorite topic to talk about. And I've been spent so many years just thinking about this, and continuously kind of working on different models. But essentially, I think that it's not about a model or a structure, but it's about a way of working, and kind of what I mentioned earlier, breaking down the kind of silos between the functions. Because if we think about HR as I'm sorry, if we think about AI as a uh, kind of it's a tool, it's a technology, but it's changing how we work and what we work. And so traditional sort of HR silos of, we're going to hire here, we're going to recruit, we're going to performance manage, we're going to train, we're going to workforce plan, all in different chunks, doesn't really work anymore. And I think
Yeah.
that's where, I think you kind of have to turn it on its head and think about, people be talking about journeys for a long time, experience journeys, et cetera. But like, think about what's the outcome you're trying to get to, and then how do you bring together different skill sets, to deliver, against that outcome. And so, the work that we, started back, at the bank in 2021 was all around breaking down sort of the silos of the different COEs within HR, and be more focused on the actual experience of the customers, or the employee, or the manager, or the leader, whatever it might be. And then bring in skill sets that didn't really exist in HR before, like experienced designers, user researchers, like figure out really what is the problem you're trying to solve,
Mm.
and then sort of map that out, and then start attacking that problem. So it's breaking down the silos, bringing in some new skill sets. And then the third one is, ways of working in a way that's much more driven by the outcome you're trying to achieve, and in more agile fashion. So you do get a chance to iterate and try new things. And so once you have this AI coming at you, or, the CEO saying, you got to go figure that out, you sort of have a system in place that's going to help you get there faster. And those are some of the good, examples that I've seen organizations do that, taking advantage of whatever technology you already have in place. Most organizations have tons of it. Take
Yeah.
advantage of whatever AI they have. It might not be great, like we talked about earlier. Comes with it's either included in the package, or you have to pay more for it. It's not always great, but at least it's something to start with. as opposed to having to start from scratch. Not every organization can, have their own AI engineers on staff and start building their own. So
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned, new skills like experience design and all those kind of things. Talk about that a little bit more. What do you think the skills that HR is going to need or needs? Which ones are missing, and which ones do you think that people who are already in the function could learn? And where do we need new specialists in who can kind of hit the ground running straight away?
yeah, I don't think that there's any that we can't learn. I'd like to think that we are a, learning, agile kind of people in HR. We're curious naturally, and we care about people. And so I think that kind of that skill set around really listening and researching what the users need and want without bringing your own sort of bias into it. It's really hard.
Mm,
Sounds easier than you think. Oh, you just ask them questions. Actually, but when you see the pros, and I've seen the pros at play, they're really good at it. Like, they really can get down to it. So but that takes practice. So I do think that
yeah.
that's a skill set that HR needs to, spend more time really listening and researching and understanding, much like marketing, like understanding your users, understanding your customers, and sort of, and that, you need to both quantitative and qualitative. So sort of how's the data that you need to bring in. So I think that's one that we need to learn and have more of. I think this other one is around just kind of understanding technology. And this is, surprising, but I do think that HR needs to become much more tech savvy. Just not, we don't need to code. We don't need to kind of go, have an engineering degree, but we need to understand, how data flows, how systems connect, to kind of start even seeing what's possible. And then, putting kind of those requirements, those, ideas out there, and then having working closely with the engineers to sort of make that happen. I think that's another one, and not just kind of push that off. And traditionally, I think that's not, a strong
Mm, mm.
capability of HR.
Yeah, no,
So
definitely. Yeah,
and yeah, and
yeah,
user research. Yeah, and I think we still need HR, content expert
of course.
to some extent, and we need the HR sort of function to be still the one thinking about the human experience and sort of engagement of our people in the system, and also, are we being compliant? Are we doing things the right way? Like AI, legislation that's coming in Europe and many states in the United States as well. It's kind of
Mm,
the two
mm.
areas where I work. We just need to be on top of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about HR's kind of position in the organization, particularly the CHRO? Because we've seen a couple of organizations going down this path of merging CHROs and CTOs, but putting the CHRO in charge. It was certainly something that when I saw that, it was like that. I was not expecting that, but I can see some logic in it. What's your perspective on the sort of those shifting of roles at the very top of the organization?
Yeah, I mean, at first, I think Moderna was the first kind of example that came out of sort of loud,
Yeah.
maybe last summer or a little bit earlier. And it was sort of like, I was like, wow, cool, was my first thought. It was like, this is cool. This is something new, because I have been banging the drum about HR needing to become more, I already said it, needing to become more, fluent in technology. But then when you take a step back, I do think that the the two roles of a chief HR officer and a chief technology officer are kind of pretty different in terms of both, the mission that they each have, the focus, the risk profile, even not thinking about sort of their background, because you can have a great CHRO that doesn't come from a HR background, and an IT leader that could have some, that could have something else,
Mm,
but I do think that the focus of the two roles, where a CTO, I think that there are two counterbalancing forces that need to work together, and I think that's my main piece. I think it's much better to have the diversity of the two schools of thought, if you will, or the two focus areas, where the HR leader is focused on the workforce and on the people, and sort of on the kind of caretaking aspect and engagement, and really owning that human workforce. And then the kind of CTO really driving the technology forward, innovation, working fast, testing. And like I said earlier, like the HR can be in charge of saying, here's what we want to do, here's the experience we're trying to create, here are the problems we're trying to solve. And the IT leader and the IT teams can go, okay, let's figure out how to do that, right, with technology. So I do think they are complementary, but I don't think they need to merge, because again, I think you'd end up hiring somebody who's more dominant in one discipline, or you end
Yeah.
up,
Yeah.
at the expense of the other, or you sort of lose some of that human centricness that maybe HR brings to certain technology decisions. So I do think it's important, but nonetheless, I do, like I said earlier, HR has, at this point in time, maybe one of the most critical roles to play in enabling AI, so that it's not just another technology. It's the enablement of creating, upskilling and creating an organization where AI can be, used
Mm.
to potential, if you will, to kind of what leaders think it can do. It requires HR to kind of come along the
Yeah.
journey, and also, change management. It's huge
Yeah.
in terms of this transformation, because it was going to transform roles, ways of working, how we work, what we do, and who we do it with, because we'll be working with AI agents also alongside us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I suppose that related to that, I think one of the big challenges is, you mentioned just how fast things are moving, and this is moving quicker than humans' ability to adapt and learn. And really, to me, it's kind of HR that needs to kind of solve that problem in terms of their own, their own function, but also, how do you make sure you have the right capability and skills in the organization and people are staying up to date when things are just moving, at such an unprecedented speed.
Yeah, no, I agree. And everything we talked about a little bit earlier was one of the topics you talked about. Like it's becoming, kind of, the skills is already obsolete as a technology moves so fast. So how do you do that? You have to, humans are only ever going to move so fast. Even if we feel like the technology around us is moving so fast, we still have to, we move it at the pace we move, and we can do amazing things. But if we don't do anything, we're not going to move, right? So I think that's, do something is the main thing.
Yeah.
And I do think there is a huge role that HR has to play in upskilling. I just don't know if all HR organizations are equipped to upskill in a way that is needed now, which is
Yeah.
much faster, much, kind of in the flow of work. Is, everybody talks about that, but like, can you get in there when somebody is doing something and just say, hey, just pop ups and kind of support nudges, and then how do you sort of create a system within your organization where you have, get-togethers and people showing what they do, and just sort of like, it doesn't take a lot, I think, to actually up the level, but you do have to do it deliberately. And I do think this is an area where the IT and HR kind of leaders can really collaborate as well, because you're going to need both sets of skills to actually create a kind of a learning system, if you will, a upskilling system. And then you have to think about just overall, like you said, skills, like what do we need now? What do we need in the future? And how is this changing? And then HR needs to, again, sit at the table and help workforce plan for future human skills of the
Yeah.
organization,
Yeah.
build, you know, build or upskill or, acquire talent with that capability. But I think the teaching, and much as the universities, like you talked about, also I think in organizations need to just kind of teach people how to learn and put
Yeah.
learning kind
Yeah.
of where people are doing the work, because that's where people are now learning.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. Sophia, thank you very much for talking to us.
Yeah, you're welcome. Happy to talk about this all day. Thanks for
Me
having
too.
me.
Me too. But it's time to move to trending or ending.
All right. So, just like that, we're back in 1967. I ran across this post today where someone, and let's call them B, posted about catching a fraudulent candidate. Good for them, right? Candidate fraud is real and it's getting worse with AI tools. But here's where my heart stopped. They listed his face did not match the name on the screen as clue number one as to why this was a fraudulent candidate. I had to read it 3 times to make sure I wasn't seeing things. So here's what happened. Din Nguyen didn't look like what they expected a Bobby Tomats should look like. The candidate's profile said Bobby Tomats. That's the profile that they saw when they invited the candidate to an interview. But the name on the Zoom was Din Nguyen. And in their mind, the candidate looked more like a Bobby than a Din. And that's where it gets dangerous. When we start using doesn't look like what I expected as a test for authenticity, we're sliding back decades in anti bias work. You can detect a lie without leaning on a stereotype. The minute we start conflating unfamiliar with untrustworthy, that's when we're undoing years of progress in inclusive hiring. And the real problem here isn't just AI, it's ambiguity, right? Employers aren't building a clear verification process. Recruiters aren't trained to spot deepfake style deception, and candidates aren't protected when they overcorrect with snap judgments rooted in bias. So, yes, interview fraud is trending, but so is the risk of discrimination creeping back in under the guise of AI safety. And the fix is getting smarter, not smaller. Like build tech assisted verification into your process, train your teams on bias aware detection, and stop treating gut feeling as a data point. Because protecting hiring integrity should never mean compromising hiring equity. So, Matt, what do you think? Is this one trending or ending?
Well, I hope it's ending, but yeah, I think it's I think you kind of really sort of hit the nail on the head there, where because we don't have uh, structured ways of dealing with this, then as we know, recruiters love to improvise and make up their own ways of doing things. And gut feels just so interesting because as we know, that's the major source of every kind of bias that happens in the hiring process. It's like, oh, my gut feel was this, and it's just like, yeah, but that's not transparent. You can't explain exactly why that is. And I think that I think that really kind of highlights the dangers of the situation that we're now in, and I just don't think companies are taking this seriously enough. I think it's just seen as a kind of a bit of an outlier, a bit of it's a novelty when it comes up, and we've got one, we've finally got a fake candidate, etc., etc. Maybe if they just wave their hand over their face, then we'll
Oh,
know for sure whether they are or not. So yeah, I don't think the industry is taking this anywhere nearly as seriously enough as it should, because every day we're seeing this technology getting better and better and better. I mean, over the last couple of weeks, I've done a couple of demos with recruiting systems that have like natural voice interfaces, and you can have a conversation with these interfaces and it is spot on. It's spot on. It's not like it used to be even 6 months ago, where there's gaps or the context is not there. You can have full on conversations unless you knew for certain that it wasn't a human. Particularly in a stressful situation like an interview, you could easily be convinced that it was. So the technology is far outpacing where we are as an industry, and I think we need to take it seriously before people just go rogue and all kinds of other dangerous things creep into it.
yeah, and I didn't want to like publicly say it's really not this specific poster's issue or anything. I've seen many posts about this. And then, like you said, when there's no clear blueprint or
Yeah.
anything to follow, people just start getting creative. And then you saw in the comments, everyone, like, oh, have them wave their hand and all of that. Like, look, guys, first of all, this has been happening since way before AI. AI is just making it a lot easier. I've had fake candidates, standings, all of that, because my background was recruiting in tech. And I've spoken about this on the show where I've had one person that I was talking to on the phone and then another person show up to the interview. And it's like, I thought you were a different gender from the one that you're presenting now, and your voice and everything is different. So that's been a thing for a long time. I think where we get into the slippery slope was because when that happened, I didn't immediately start thinking, okay, anytime I speak to someone who has like a little inflection in their voice or something like that, like, okay, red flag, this is something you look at. No. So saying like,
Mm.
oh, they didn't look like how I thought they were supposed to look is where you get into the dangerous things because now people are going to start assuming, and there was all this
Yeah.
discussion on that post. So that's where I think like
Mm.
let's put some guardrails. Like companies like you said need to take it seriously, and there are ways of doing this. I have seen some software out there that like helps you with these verifications and things like that. That's what we need to be integrating into our HR tech.
Yeah, or at least discussing it, at least having proper debates about it rather than, it tends to pop up on LinkedIn as, oh, I had my,
My
had a fake
first.
candidate today or anyone else there. And it's people asking for help. It's like, how do I deal with this? What do we do? And there's just no, kind of no sort of consensus around answers, which is crazy. And it just gets back to the whole, meeting people face to face and judging them on how firm their handshake is or how much eye contact they had with someone. So we need to get better. And I think also the bit about, I don't think the industry is taking almost the candidate AI sphere seriously enough. So what I mean by that is, if you're looking for a job at the moment, there are an ever evolving set of tools that you have that you can use. Some of them perfect, absolutely perfect. I can't see anyone disagreeing with them. Some of them of dubious ethics. But recruiters sort of as a whole tend to sort of look at that as, oh, it's all this cheating technology. It's like, it's kind of a bad thing. This is defining how people look for jobs more so than anything else that's happening on our side of the fence. Job boards
Yes.
still look like job boards. I know, some people are trying to evolve, but we're not evolving. The candidates and the AI that's aimed at the candidates is evolving, and I think that the future is coming from that side, but that part of the picture. I think that I had two conversations today about AI to AI conversations. So it's like if we have AI interviews, then the candidates will send their AI to talk to the AI interviews, and that might not be a bad thing. It might be a great way of getting through all of this kind of stuff, and then landing a human versus a human to talk to a human. When all these things are kind of covered. So I just think we need to take what's going on in the candidate space very seriously, because I think that is where the future of recruiting is going to come from, not from what the job boards are going to do next month. I don't know what you think about what you
Oh,
think about that, but yeah,
100% agree on that. And I think for years there was this whole the candidate side of the market. There really wasn't any money being spent there because there's a whole, oh, we don't charge candidates for jobs and stuff like that. And that's great. I 100% advocate for that still. But now with AI, I think companies and software developers and software companies are seeing there's a whole other side of the HR tech market per se that hasn't been tapped in and that actually needs tools, and that's the candidate side. With everything that's happening and how hard it is to get a job, of course necessity is going to breed all of these inventions and all of these tools for candidates to use, and we have to pay attention as TA people. Like you're saying, we can't just sit here and like ignore that this is that it's happening, and we have to adjust. And really, it's not a bad thing. Just like we're using AI, candidates are allowed to use AI. Let's just really not dig our heads in the sand and like, okay, this is what's happening. What are we going to do next? What are our deal breakers? What are the rules? And I think we spoke about that early this year about
yeah,
companies who actually have um, rules of what is acceptable
yeah.
as far as AI in their interview process and what isn't.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I'm actually writing a post, an article about this at the moment, so it's kind of top of my mind. But there is a concept. We talk about agentic AI and recruiting agents and all this kind of stuff, but we don't talk about the agents, the candidates. have, which is kind of what we're starting to see kind of evolve. And there's this concept out there called a primary agent, and the whole idea is that as individuals, eventually we'll have a primary agent or a couple of primary agents. I saw someone compare it to how many email accounts you've got. And that primary agent goes and just does stuff for us. It builds other agents, it employs other agents, it's all that kind of stuff. And I think people have a primary job search agent or a primary career agent that just goes out there, finds opportunities for them, goes as far through the process as the employer will let it. And that's really the direction of travel. And this is just the early days, the early chaotic days of that. So I just think we need to take it very seriously and, just really have a plan, because at the moment there doesn't seem to be one, other than people desperately asking for help on LinkedIn, which is always a sign that the industry is behind the curve on something.
And let's please not crowdsource how we're going to solve this issue, because LinkedIn is not where it needs to be solved.
No, absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, I think it's kind of a really interesting thing. I mean, I don't know what's the trending and what's the ending bit of bit of all of this. Do we hope some of it's trending and the rest of it's ending? What do you think?
I hope what's trending is that we start having the conversations, but that we start having the conversations with the right people
Yeah.
and in the right environments. I hope what's ending is that we crowdsource solutions on LinkedIn, that we post about it as if it were this proud thing. Um, there are screenshots of people here. It doesn't matter if the candidate was fraudulent or not. They did not give you permission to post their screenshot online. That's also something that I've seen many, many times that we probably need to rethink. And also, going back to bias and letting that creep back in after all the work that we've done is not how we're going to solve this problem. So I hope that part is ending.
That part is ending, taking this seriously. Let's hope that's trending.
Yes.
Absolutely. Rhona, thank you very much for bringing that one to the show. Really, really, really important debate. And that brings us to the end of another show. So thank you very much for tuning in, or watching on catch up, or listening to us as a podcast. If you're listening as a podcast, you do miss my facial expression when I had the fake gin, which is probably worth me taking a photo of or something. A big thank you to Rhona and Sofia for excellent chat on the show tonight. Big thank you to Alan, our long-suffering producer, for holding it all together as normal. And as ever, a huge amount of other great shows on Purple Acorn, including Rona's show, Workfluencer, the HR Morning Show, which I think is on tomorrow, From the Desk, My First Job, From X to Z. So many of them, all worth your time and attention. So head over to the Purple Acorn LinkedIn page and hit that follow and notify button, and you will be able to watch the shows as they are broadcast. Or alternatively, head over to purpleacornnetwork.com to find out more. You can find the Alder Hour as a podcast on Spotify, Apple, or anywhere else where you listen to your quality podcasts. My longer form interviews are available on Recruiting Future, again, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And yeah, make sure you search the Alder Hour as well when you're there. So we will be back next week. I'm already looking forward to it. This is Matt Alder, clocking out.